Buckle up and hold on tight so I can beam your ears all the way to Vegas so we can speak with Rachel Lane, who's waiting for me on the show floor here at the summit to tell me all about Medallia. So, a massive warm welcome to the show, Rachel. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Rachel Lane. I'm Solution Principal for Medallia. I specialise in the digital world for Medallia. So that's bringing voice of customer back in across the digital platforms. However, I work in all different areas within Medallia, right across the verticals as well. I also do quite a lot in retail. I've got a background in retail prior to software. So, customer experience really is fundamental to what I've always done, right from when I first started out in the workforce back in retail 30 years ago.
Wow. Seems like only yesterday.
It does.
So for people listening to this conversation all over the world, how would you describe the Adobe Summit, and what do you enjoy most about this event?
Wow, it's a mix of many things. I love coming to the Adobe Summit because, firstly, it's the engagement that you get from the audience. So you get a really diverse audience at the Adobe Summit. We get to engage with, obviously, our customers already, but also meet people from organizations that aren't customers as well. So it's good from my perspective, and I work very strategically with our customer set. So it's good from my perspective to learn about, those organizations and their journey with customer experience, where they are at the moment, what they're planning to do. I'm really keen on the whole practitioner side for the customer experience. I love to have all manner of conversations with prospects about where they are in their maturity of their own programs, where voice of the customer and bringing in that experience management piece comes for them, and talking to them about our best practices and some of the customer stories that we have as well. So it's a great opportunity for me to learn as well as give back, because obviously I get to present at the Adobe Summit as well, which is something else that I like to do, share some of our findings that we've gained both from our customers but also from the market research that we do too. So yeah, it's a win-win for me.
Cool. Now, predictably, of course, the big theme here is around the importance of creating digital experiences and transforming the customer experience. Usual buzzwords are present, of course, but how important is the customer experience to brands now, do you think?
Massively. And, the beauty of it is that now, Neil, we're really able to measure that very, very well. We're able to measure right across the customer journey. What I'm very keen to do is to help organizations to bring in that voice of customer, but in a very smart way, so that feedback that they're getting from their customers is rich, and it goes right across that journey from, that initial engagement on the website to when they become a customer, when they engage, when something goes wrong. All of those stages are, key stages for a customer. So what I like to do is work with them and say, right, this is a really smart way that you can bring in that voice of customer at specific points across that journey.
So there are so many different ideas around that superior customer experience and what it actually is. So to help listeners, that will be a mixture of consumers and business leaders, and help them both understand how it impacts the world. Can you maybe set the scene and tell them how the customer experience will relate to such areas as retail, travel, hospitality, banking and insurance?
Yeah, and there's nuances to each of those verticals that you just mentioned, and some of those nuances are from the perspective of that vertical. So, for example, with banking, there's an industry that has, it's worked through legacy systems. It's been in existence for a long time, and for many years it was an immovable object, and it didn't necessarily have all of the calls to action that a vertical like retail had, because it didn't necessarily have huge amounts of churn within its customers. But still, what was important to them across all those years was to really measure the success that they were having with their existing customers. If you look at retail, for example, when we first started working with retailers, it's very much about acquisition, acquiring new customers, and then keeping customers. So understanding what churn looks like and what the predictive modelling would look like for churn for retail. And what we see within each of these verticals is there's a level of maturity, and they go through maturity at different stages. What we have now is really a convergence that the customer is driving. So we've for many years been chasing the fire truck with customers. Customers have always been ahead in terms of their expectations for their experiences, but never more so than now, because we've had lots of new players in the market, niche players that are very agile. In most of those vertical sectors, we have agile players now that don't have all these legacy systems. And that really has created a playing field for customers that is not by no means a level playing field. So it's very hard for some of those older verticals or some of those older organizations within that vertical to really compete and differentiate themselves on a service level. So that makes understanding CX and measuring CX really, really critical to them. So there's different reasons why we work with different organizations. There's different levels of maturity, and honestly, Neil, this is a business for me that I see. I'm going to be employed in this for years to come. Yeah. I feel sure about that, simply because we have to keep reiterating our service models if we're to even meet the expected standards now that customers have come to know.
So this is my third year here, and I've attended the summit. This is the third year I've attended the Adobe Summit and seen the experience economy evolve over those 3 years. But what are the key pieces of the experience puzzle that brands are missing out on still, do you think?
Well, I think when we think about, and particularly when we look upstairs today at those Adobe partners that there are exhibiting up there at the now vast array of Adobe solutions that there are available, we can see one thing becomes very clear to me, and when we think about customer experience and how it's evolved over the years, what customers are expecting now are very seamless journeys across an omni-channel that we as businesses have provided for them. The struggle is creating that in a very seamless way, and we can only see by the plethora of those applications and technologies upstairs as to how difficult sometimes a business can make it to really connect all of those to create that seamless journey.